Okay. Speaking of Kabbalah, tonight's class is going to be heavily Kabbalah. I can't pretend to tell you that I know what I'm speaking about tonight. Meaning, I'm going to share some sources with you, but if you can understand them, great. If you can't, you'll know that there is Kabbalah that speaks about the ideas and perhaps is beyond what we can understand, which is not the end of the world to say there's something in Judaism we don't understand, right? That's introduction number one. Introduction number two is the last time I gave a shir about Kabbalah. Interestingly, it's related to Parshas Shemos and Vayera, Parshios that we're learning now. The last time I gave a shir that touched on Kabbalah was Shani. Who was a baby at the time when I broke my elbow? Rachar, Sari. Sari is now 12, as you all know, and she was a newborn, or no, she was crawling around already. She was 7 or 8 months old. And it was in July, right? So I had broken my elbow in Palo Alto, and I gave a shir. And I was on so many different, I was only on one drug, a narcotic. And I was high and I gave a shir about high toe. I couldn't drive to the shir because I wasn't supposed to drive while I was taking that medicine. And so Shandy drove me. And because Shandy drove me, we took Sari with us. This is 12 years ago, 11 and a half years ago. And it's amazing how long ago it is. And she was so cute. I mean, she's still so cute, but she was so cute, crawling around. And most of the people that were at the shir were all grandparents. They didn't listen to a word I said. They just watched her the entire time, which worked out great because, I mean, I don't know that I made any sense anyways. Okay, but so I kind of feel a little bit like that tonight. Just because most of you know that I have COVID, and we could talk about it later. So no need to react to it, please. And in addition, a couple of my kids have it. Baruch Hashem, we're managing, but that's why I'm in my, I'm not like dressed up as a rabbi tonight. I hope that it's okay. In Westwood, you can get away with this kind of behavior. Anyway, so I kind of feel like I have a head cold, and so I hope I can make myself clear tonight. Be'ezrat Hashem, we will learn a lot of Torah Barry Lili Nishmas, your parents, and we thank Barry Steiner for sponsoring tonight's shir. The Amidah, or Tfilah, or Shmona Esrei goes by different names. It's written in a specific way, but it also has its place in a particular spot in the Siddur, in the davening, in the service. By way of introduction, Kabbalah teaches that there are 4 levels of worlds. And God interacts with the universe by permeating these 4 worlds. Each one follows another in a progression. Our prayers travel through the 4 worlds, beginning from our own terrestrial sphere. And ultimately, as we stand in Shemona Esrei, we reach the highest level and communicate with Hashem himself. This is Kabbalah, it's true. But if you look at the second parak of Chagiga, if any of you have ever learned Chagiga before, you'll know what I'm referring to. The second parak of Chagiga, the first Mishnah there, also speaks a lot about these kinds of ideas, that there's different levels of worlds, although it offers a different number, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, in that, we once spoke about it in Shul on Yontif. It says, Ya'aleh, v'yavo, v'yagia, v'yira'eh, v'yiretzeh, v'yishama, v'yipoked, v'yizacher. There's 7 different expressions because it's 7 different levels. Okay? These are ideas that appear in Shas, in our Talmud, not just in Kabbalah, in different ways. Kabbalah nowadays, well, I'm not an expert in Kabbalah, but there's something called the Kabbalah of the Ramchal, okay, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Litzato. I believe it's a little bit of a different school of thought than the Arizal, if I'm not mistaken. And tonight's shir is very much going to be based on the words of the Ramchal in his sefer called Derech Hashem. Derech Hashem is called, in English, is the way of God. And Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, Zechrono Levracha, Zechitzarek Levracha, not our friend Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, but the original Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan translated it. It's by Feldheim. And he does a beautiful job with the translation. I'll do the best that I can to explain what's happening. But let's take a look at the words and we'll read them together. In Kabbalistic terminology, I'll just throw some terminology out there for a moment, okay? There are 4 worlds. One is called Asiya, which is the world of doing. Yetzira, the world of shaping. Bria, creating. And Atzilut, which is the spirit. Okay? That's kind of just a little bit of background in terms of how each one of these worlds has its own terminology. Let's take a look at the Derech Hashem. I'm going to share my screen with you now.
Could you turn the sound down inside?
Which sound?
In your TV? You're getting up.
Okay. Here we go. I'm going to actually read it in Hebrew because in a way, you can read it in English on the screen if you'd like. It just, in a way, makes it easier to understand in Hebrew than in English, if you don't mind. Okay? So he says like this, O tzarech sheteida. He says, you need to know. Shinei klal ha'olamot mitchalek la'arba. He says, the concept of different worlds can be divided into 4. That is that there are 4 different worlds. V'hainu ha'olam hazeh.
Thank you.
And this is this world. B'shnei chalakav elyon v'tachton. Our universe can be divided in halves, 2 halves. The upper half and the lower half. What does that mean? Shemachelek hashemimi. This is related to the word shemayim. So here you have the chelek hashemimi, which is the heavens or the sky. V'nikra olam hagalgalim. It's called the world of the galgalim, the celestial. It's the world of the planets, the stars. And then you have hayesodi. So you have on the one hand shemayimi, I'll make it bold. On the one hand you have yesodi. This is all part of our world. Yesodi means foundational. Hua nikra olam hashafal. In Kabbalistic terminology, it's called the lower world. The klal shnehem nikra olam echad. Together, the 2 of them make up one world. So the world as we see it, the world as we know it, has 2 halves to it. We have the world, the earth that we live on, the physical world, and then you have the heavens, which includes basically everything that you can see, even with a telescope, by the way, okay? Even with a telescope. Ve'al olam hazeh yish olam hamalachim. Above this world, and again, don't ask me whether or not this is in space or outside of space. It seems to me like it's outside of the space as we know it. Ala olam hazeh yish olam hamalachim. Above this world is the world of the angels. V'alav, and by the way, the world of angels, the Mishnah Chagiga, or the Gemara there, talks about the great distances involved in terms of the angels. We make reference to angels when we daven, don't we? Anybody could I'm going to foreshadow a little bit of what we're going to talk about. But who can recall in which part of davening do we make reference to angels?
Kadosh.
Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh is correct. So where's the first time in davening we say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh?
Right. After Baruch Hu.
After Baruch Hu, correct. It's in Brachos Kriya Shema. We refer to the Ofanim, the Chayos HaKodesh. These are different kinds of angels, okay? So it's important to keep that in mind, that we make reference to the angels already after Yishtabach, after Baruch Hu. Okay. Okay, so you have the world of the Malachim. V'alav olam hakochos elyonim. Above this is yet another world, a third world. That of, he translates it here as the highest forces. I don't know what this means. Obviously, spiritual forces. Shirashe habrios shezacharnim b'chelik harishon, which something that it was discussed earlier by the Ramchal. We're not going to get into it. V'nikra olam hakisei. This third world is called the olam hakisei, the world of the throne. Whose throne? Obviously, the throne of Hashem. V'hinei lamala mehen, above all of them, b'madrega, meaning on even a higher level, yivchan klal hashba'osav yisbarach. That's where we can speak, and I'll read the English here. in general of different influences emanating from God, revelations of his light, from which the existence of everything in creation is derived. Okay? So I don't know exactly what this means, but conceptually, all we need to bring and remember from this is that there are 4 different spheres, 4 different worlds. You have the world of Asiya, which is doing, which probably is going to be related to our world, the world that we live in. You have the world of Yetzira, of shaping, where let's take a guess here and say it's going to be related to the Malachim. Bria, creating, is going to be related to the world of the Kochos Olam, which is called the highest forces, or the world of the throne. And on the highest level, it's going to be the world of the spirit. So as I told you, I don't know what this means, okay? But conceptually, the fact that on some level there is these concepts exist, sure. On the fact that on some level these concepts exist is important for us to understand in order to understand the structure of the siddur. Let's take a look at the second piece of Ramchal. He says like this: the structure of our daily prayers parallels the 4-world structure of creation. Vihine. Again, I'll read it in Hebrew just because it just lends itself to better explanation when you read it in Hebrew. Guys, can you go play like in the front hall? You could bring the carpet. You could bring the carpet. You could bring the carpet with you if you like. Okay, that's fine. So, according to this order of the worlds, is how the siddur basically is divided. Dehainu, shlosha chalakim betchila, litakin shlosha alamos. The first 3 portions of tefillah are meant to be metakin, which is to rectify the 3 lower worlds. And then he lists them for us. Olam hazeh, olam hamalachim, olam hakiseh. This world, the world of angels, and the world of the throne. We'll talk in a second how we go about rectifying that. What does it mean that it rectifies it? What does it mean that it needs rectification? I don't know. My guess is that it enables us to connect to Hashem. It enables us to connect, to transcend these worlds. It enables us to climb one level at a time spiritually so that we can access Hashem. That's going to be that's my guess, but like I said, I'm no expert in these kinds of Torahs. So again, the siddur is divided into 4 parts. Okay, we'll see, or 5 parts. We'll see, but they're going to be related to these different worlds. So it's very interesting. What would you say is the first part of davening? Most people would say the first part of davening is what? The morning what? Brachos, of course, right. The morning brachos. Okay, now the morning brachos in many shuls consists of, you start off with where you talk about the tarnagal, the rooster, right? Differentiating between night and day. In reality, really, brachos start much before that with brachas haTorah, which people say usually before coming to shul, and then of course with Asher Yatzar and Asher Kedishanu Mitosa B'Tzvenu Al Netilas Yadayim, Asher Yatzar and Elokai Neshama, and of course that's preceded with Modeh. Okay, now the reality is that we refer to that part of davening as brachos. He calls it karbanos. Why does he call it karbanos? Because really, the karbanos that come after the brachas hashachar, after the morning blessings, really should be said. We have to be honest and open and transparent with you. I only started saying the karbanos, and really I only say the kiyar, the tamid, and the ola. I don't say all the karbanos. I say the basic karbanos. I only started in the past few years. In yeshiva, it wasn't normally said, or at least if it was rushed big time, So, and many shuls don't say it. In our shul, we don't officially say it, but really it should be said, and that's a part of the davening, and that's exactly how it refers to the first part of davening. The first part of davening is called karbanos. It includes the brachos and then the recitation of the various offerings that were brought. The second part of davening is called Zmirot. We refer to Zmirot as Psukei de Zimra, the verses of song, the praises. Ubirchas Kriya Shema. And then you have Birchos Kriya Shema, which is the brachos of Shema, including the Shema. Achar kach, Tefillah Me'umad. Then you have Tefillah Me'umad. Tefillah Me'umad, of course, is the Amidah. So Olam Haza is going to be related to Karbanos. Let me do this for you here. Olam Haza is going to be related to Karbanos. Olam HaMalachim is going to be related to Zmiros. Olam HaKisei is going to be related to Birchas Kriya Shema. And then you have Tefillah Me'umad, which corresponds to the Olam Halokus. In English, if you're looking at the English on the left side, it's much easier because he just puts it in parentheses for you. Right? Okay? So the offerings really pertain to the physical world. The praises of Psukei de Zimra pertain to the world of the angels. The Shema and its blessings to the world of the throne. And afterwards is the Amidah, parallel to the world of God. The Amidah serving as a catalyst, helping to incite the emanations from God in all their aspects. So what do we think that means? So by the time you get to the Amidah, by the time you get there, so what you're actually doing is you're talking to Hashem at the highest level. That's why we stand for the Amidah. You don't have to stand the rest of the time because you're not before Hashem in the same way because you're still climbing. Okay, there's parts that you stand for. Baruch Shamar Yishtabach. Maybe we'll talk about that sometime in the future.
Is incite the Hebrew word? Is that how you would define it?
In Hebrew word it says lahamshich, which means to draw down, to Meshicha is to pull. So incite is not a word I would have used. Okay. I'm sure he had a reason for using that word, but that's the Hebrew is lahamshich, which is to pull down or to draw forth. Hashpos are influences.
That's a better word.
Yeah. Hashpos are influences, lefi bechino sehen, according each one in its own way. Okay, so davening, in a sense, is you're climbing a ladder with the Amidah at the top. But you can't just end with the Amidah, you have to come down the ladder. And that's the end of the piece here. Afterwards, you have three other parts. Let's read that in English. The Amidah is followed by three other prayers, each contributing to draw downward a continuation of the emanations world to world. These are, now let's just read it in English here because it's the same as the Hebrew. The Kedusha for the order, Kedusha de Sidra. What do you think that's a reference to? It says it here. Uvaletzion, because we say Kadosh, Kadosh again, don't we? In Uvaletzion we say Kadosh, 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 and Baruch Kivod Hashem. We say those in Uvaletzion. So that is the Kedusha. So there's Kedusha before the Amidah, there's Kedusha during the Amidah in the repetition, and then there's Kedusha after the Amidah. Interesting. So the Kedusha is called Kedusha de Sidra, which we say in Uvaletzion, the Kedusha for the order, the Psalm of the day, and Ein Kelokeinu. So those are the three steps down. At the end of the service, having partaken of God's blessing, we say Aleinu, to reiterate that God is king and to spread his kingship over all the worlds. So in this context, besides for this nice little blurb over here at the top, so it's true that the structure of our daily prayers parallels the four-world structure of creation, but in understanding there's different levels of creation, so we're climbing up and then we're climbing down. So we're climbing up to access, and then in his words, when we come down, we're bringing it with us. We're bringing God's influence with us. I can't do a better job explaining it than I did, because this is about as well as I understand it. Okay? Rabbi Monk, though, does explain it. So let's use Rabbi Monk's words. And tonight we'll do a lot of screen sharing because this is depth beyond my ability. And when we read it together, hopefully we'll have a bit of understanding of it. So Rabbi Eliyahu Monk is, I believe, Mrs. Fassman's father. I think so. Right, Shandy? Rabbi Eliyahu Monk is Rabbi Mrs. Fassman's father. Father or uncle. Yeah, I'm not sure which. She's a monk. No, not a brother. He lived in, I believe she grew up in Paris, in France, Mrs. Fassman, and obviously she's been here for about 45 years or so. Her husband started the kollel here. A very well-established Torah family here in Los Angeles, the Fassman family. Okay, Rabbi Eliyahu Monk did a lot of translating, and this particular book is not a translation, but it's called The World of Prayer. Okay, the four worlds of the Kabbalah are, and this is, he's going to use different terminology than the Ramchal, obviously. Okay, the Ramchal called it the world of, called our world, this world. Actually, he did call it the Olam Asiyah, I think so, right? He called this world was our world, Olam Hazeh, and then you have the world of the angels, and then you have the world of the throne, and then you have the world of God. So he says like this: the four worlds of the Kabbalah, the sphere of material phenomena, Olam HaAsiyah, the world of doing; that of the forms, Olam HaYetzirah, the world of shaping; that of the active forces, Olam HaBriya, the world of creating; and finally, the world of the pure ideas, Olam HaTzilut, the world of the spirit. Our daily prayer or service reflects these four dimensions. The quest for truth must pass through all these four stages if it is to succeed. So this is the first kind of new idea here. I may have missed a chat here. Right, Zach, I see your question, and it's true that that this Nusach Sfard, which includes Enkelukenu, is written much more al pi Kabbalah. It's true. What you're saying is correct, but obviously there's going to be some sort of a parallel, whatever it might be. Those who've studied with Chabad are much more comfortable and familiar with this terminology than I am. Schwartzy loved this stuff. Love this kind of stuff. Okay, from our experience in the world of sense.
He's only in the third or fourth realm.
That's right.
Serious. Hi, Rabbi, you're muted now.
He's on the fourth level.
No, my internet went to a different level. That's what happened. Okay.
He's right here now, but he's muted. Rabbi,
Well, he looks like he froze.
I'm not muted.
You're muted, Rabbi.
No, I'm not. Hold on.
You're muted. And now you're good.
I know.
Okay.
now you're unmuted.
Thank you, everybody. My internet went to a different level. Okay. All right. Let's go back to Rabbi Monk. I'm glad that you all did not get lost while my internet went, kicked me off here. Okay. Let's see. From our experience in the world of sense perception, the mind extracts the immanent laws of the perceived things, their forms which make them what they are. And then it is led by logical analysis to seek their causes, the forces that create these forms. Finally, it penetrates to the supreme reason, which is the innermost soul and prime cause moving and controlling the lower worlds. The path traversed by the inquiring mind, however, is the very same one along which the thoughts of the worshipper must pass, to ascend to the divine presence of the Creator. It is no wonder, then, that our daily morning prayer, in its four main parts, reflect the ascent through the four worlds. These parts are Brachos up to Baruch She'amar to Baruch Hu, to Gal Yisrael, and the fourth is Shmona Esrei. So I have no idea what I just read, but this part I do understand. In the first section, till Baruch She'amar, man's practical needs, awakening and clothing, are mentioned. A blessing for the work and welfare of the day follows. Then a description of the daily sacrifice, also a practical matter, is added. Thus, the entire beginning is devoted to the world of material phenomena, the Olam Asiyah, the point from which the quest for God must set out. I think this is something we all can understand. Right? When you look at davening, the first brachos Even in Shulchan Aruch, it talks about you open up your eyes, you say this bracha. When you stand up straight, you say this bracha. When you do this, you say that bracha. When you put on your shoes, you say another bracha. It's all things that we're actually doing, that we're actually involved in. The second division, even though we don't actually do that anymore, we wait to say the brachas altogether. Okay. The second division, the Psuki de Zimra, deals with God's revelations of himself in nature and history. Splendor of nature, the magnificence of the starry sky, the beauty of the reality of our world, all proclaim the glory of God. That's Hallelujah. That's what the Hallelujah is. Thus, our thoughts rise from the world of human activity to the Olam HaYetzira, the world of the forms and shapes which are the background and the framework of the activities of our daily life. Behind the Olam HaYetzira, we can discern the Olam HaBriya, to which the third section for prayers is devoted, the world of the forces that dominate the creation. And then finally, you have the Amidah. But before you get to the Amidah, let's see what he says. And then this will be, besides from my head, feels like it weighs 100 pounds right now. This will be our last piece for tonight. Okay. This is also Rabbi Monk. There are three kinds of forces: the forces of nature, the spiritual and moral ones, and finally those of history and destiny. The three blessings which now follow conform to these three forces. The first one, Yotzer Or, where we speak about God creating light, reminds us of the powers active in nature. The divine light attended upon the creation of the universe, and through its radiation, the world renews itself daily. Even darkness, apparently the negation of light, is not a destructive force. It takes its turn in the service of God. Second blessing, Ava Rabbah. These are both, obviously we're referring to the blessings of the Shema right now. Expresses the idea that God is the ruler over the moral forces active in our world. Yet while the forces that dominate the mechanical, determined world of nature are renewed by God every day, man is free to use the moral and spiritual powers at will, and so must rely upon himself. He can only humbly pray for support from on high. And if you look at the Brach of Ava Rabbah, for many people, especially people immersed in the world of Torah, Ava Rabbah is by far the most meaningful prayer they say every single day, which is the bracha right before Shema in the morning. Although there's a similar version to it, the second bracha right before the Shema at night as well. Enlighten our eyes through thy Torah. Make our hearts cleave to thy commandments, that he may come to proclaim with every fiber of his being the unity and mastery of God. And then, of course, Shema Yisrael. The third blessing, Goal Yisrael, flows from the first two. God alone rules over all the forces in the universe, natural and spiritual. He alone has the power to determine its destiny. Goal Yisrael, of course, is about the destiny of the Jewish people, that God put us into Egypt, and then as we were destined to go, be there, and then as we were destined to leave, and that's, of course, the parshas that we're learning now. Evidence of this is the outstanding event in Jewish history, the Exodus, and that's what the blessing Goal Yisrael is about. It is the realization that God is the source and the master of all the forces of the cosmos, that guides us to the highest rung of the heavenly ladder, the Olam Hatzilus, the world of pure spirit. The worshipper enters this world at the climactic moment of his prayer at the Shemona Esrei. Now he stands in silent prayer in the presence of Hashem. So when you think about it, one of the most common questions people ask is like, why can't I just do my own prayer? Why can't I just make up the words myself? The answer is, you can always pray to Hashem in your own words whenever you wish to, but there's a reason why the Siddur has the structure that it has. The men of the Great Assembly didn't randomly choose the order and the structure of the Siddur. It all has a particular structure and order. And that's what we spoke about tonight in terms of understanding it. Now, do I understand it any better than I did before I started? A little bit. Do I really understand everything I read tonight? No, absolutely not. But I am comforted, if you will, by knowing that the Siddur as a whole has a structure to it, and that structure is what allows us to access Hashem. It's the power of the prayer and the way that it's written in the Siddur that gives us the access in a way that is different. In other words, just if you're going to use an analogy, doors are locked and keys open them up. And sometimes in order to get to your goal, you have to go through a series of doors and you need a series of keys. So if you view the world as a series, the worlds, the spheres, as series of one long hallway and series of doors, or that you're climbing up, the Washington Monument or whatever, some very high place, and you're climbing up one level at a time, and you're accessing Hashem by the keys which Anshe Knesset Gedola gave us, which is of course the structure of the Siddur. I'll end just with a question that one of my students asked me this week, which was actually a great question, and I didn't know how to answer him at a 6th grade level. I didn't know how to answer him at a 6th grade level, so I didn't. I used it as an opportunity. You'll see in a moment. But he said to me, the Mishnah says, we're learning the 4th parak of Brachos, and the Mishnah says that if a person is davening Shemona Esrei, they should face Yerushalayim. Right? If you're outside of Israel, you face Israel. If you're in Israel, you face Yerushalayim. If you're in Yerushalayim, you face the Old City. If you're in the Old City, you face the Beis HaMikdash. If you're in the Beis HaMikdash, you face the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies. Okay? And the context, the Mishnah doesn't spell all of that out. The context is somebody's riding on a donkey. Somebody's in an airplane, to use a modern analogy. You're on a Greyhound bus. Anyone here ever been on a Greyhound bus? Okay? You're on a Greyhound bus and you have time to daven. So what should you do? So if you're on a Greyhound bus and you're traveling west, you have to stand up and turn around to face east. If you can't, you can't, and then you just you have in mind the Kodesh HaKadoshim. That's what the Mishnah says. You should focus your mind to the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And then the Mishnah continues. The Mishnah says if you're on a chamor, which is a donkey, then you should get off the donkey. And if you can't get off the donkey, then you should turn around. And if you can't turn around, then you should have in mind that you're davening towards Hashem. Davening towards the Holy of Holies. That's where you focus your mind to the Holy of Holies. That's one Mishnah. The next Mishnah says that if a person is on a raft or a wagon or a ship, so they can't really adjust their bodies towards Yerushalayim, so again, they should just focus their mind on the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Okay? So he asked me a question, which is a very good question, which is, why, I'm going to show you the Mishnah inside here. He says, isn't Hashem everywhere? And that's, of course, comes from a children's song. Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is truly everywhere. Right? And that's why some people say you shouldn't look up when you daven. It's like, well, Hashem is only up and not in front of you? Right? That's what some people say. That's a great question. So, why do you have to focus your mind here? Yechaven is libo keneged beis Kodesh HaKadoshim. Why do you have to focus your attention towards the Kodesh HaKadoshim? Same thing here. Yechaven is libo keneged beis Kodesh HaKadoshim. Why do you have to do that? Just focus your mind right here. Hashem is right here, and daven Hashem right here. How's that for a 6th grade question? Not bad, right? Okay. So the technical answer is, the Bartanura says it here, and I'll read it to you. And this, to me, this is not a 6th grade answer. Yachzir es panav letzad Yerushalayim, turn towards Yerushalayim. So he says, why? Shenemar, as it says in Malachim Aleph Ches, where it speaks about the Beis HaMikdash, v'yispalu eilecha derech artzam. They're going to daven towards you by way of their land. Meaning that the tefillos go up to Hashem through Eretz Yisrael. And then he continues, Yichavin es libo keneged beis Kodesh HaKadoshim. They'll focus their minds towards Hashem opposite the Holy of Holies. Shenemar, v'yispalu elecha ala makom hazeh. And they'll daven to you towards this place. That means that wherever Jews are in the world, they'll all focus their attention towards the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So the Bartanura is offering support from Sukkim and Navi for the idea that we're supposed to daven in that way. But it doesn't really answer his question as much as kind of say, why? But isn't Hashem everywhere? There's an incredible video, which I did show my class, which I don't have in front of me, but it's an Aish video. And I'm going to take a moment to find it. It's such an incredible video. One second. Pretty sure I copied and pasted it into my notes here. Oh, here we go. Take a look at this video here. You'll see in a moment why I am sharing this with you. I'll see if my internet is up to the task. Here we go. Okay. I think that's a pretty neat video. I think they did a pretty incredible job there. And the quotes are obviously important quotes for our class. So I don't know why it's like that, but my non-sixth grade answer is that the same way the siddur is a structure for tefillah and enables a person to access Hashem in a particular way, that you have these spiritual gates and or doors, and the tefillah unlocks the door. So similarly, the Kodesh HaKadoshim is the pathway for tefillah. Even though, yeah, Hashem could hear our tefillah wherever we are, of course it could. But that's, for some reason, that's how it's designed. And these pathways play a role as well. I don't know if I made any sense tonight. I hope I did. And I hope that we have a better appreciation, understanding of the siddur structure as a whole and Amidah's place in it. Next week, in Mirza Hashem, with Siyata Dishmaya, we will take a look at the Amidah itself and the structure of the Amidah. And I thank you so much for joining me tonight. And if I wasn't clear, I'll blame it on the COVID, not on the Kabbalah. Okay. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. Feel good.
Thank you.
Usually